Welcome to the Two Fat Guys in an Album podcast, your weekly dive into iconic albums and our search for the modern classics. In this episode, we explore the 1985 Dream of the Blue Turtle album by Sting. This is his first solo album since his departure from the Police. It is also a departure from his musical stylings with the Police as he wanders full steam into the arena of jazz. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more album reviews, in-depth discussions, and music analysis from two fat guys who love talking about music regardless of the genre. I am Mike Blackburn. I will be your host and narrator, and with me, as always, is the maestro of music, the siren of sound, the doctor of the diminished chord, Brek Hufnus. Welcome, maestro.
Thank you. Greetings.
So, we kind of always start this with any kind of follow-up Mrs. Skips things that we kind of left hanging from the last episode. Do you have any comments?
So, last episode we did Meatloaf, Bad Out of Hell. And quite honestly, podcast perfection. So you're going to want to go back and check that out. I did have a couple thoughts on some of our side conversations from there. We had Ben Harper's name had come up, and there was some confusion about whether he was an old blues man or not. And but he, just to clean that up, he had a couple big hits called "Steal My Kisses" in 1999. And Diamonds on the Inside, 2003. He's actually touring this summer, so he'll be at the Auditorium Theater in Chicago in July, and I'm sure he'll be all around the country.
Nice.
So yeah, that's Ben Harper.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I guess we're going back 2 podcasts now because we were talking about Rush. I don't know where we're at now. I don't. I'm sorry.
A couple podcasts ago. Yep.
Yeah, but you had mentioned Rush 50, the box set that's being sold for
$300
zillion
dollars or something, $200 something.
Yeah. So I already have their albums and CDs, so I probably won't be getting the box set. But I was curious to see if you could stream it, and you can. So you will be able to listen to Rush 50 on iTunes or wherever. You just won't get the vinyls and the CDs and the books and all that. Yeah. Right. Yeah. But you'll still be able to hear the music. And it looks amazing, actually. It's a lot of live, looks like live, not previously released music. So I am looking forward to checking that out. That's dropping March 2nd.
Yeah. What I really thought was cool about them doing it live is it's not like, a modern concert or anything. They're actually showing you the live songs from the era that the albums were from.
Yeah.
So, so you got some really throwback kind of albums at that point. Very cool.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to checking that out further. I had one more that came up. We had talked about Bruce Hornsby a little bit in the previous episode. I mentioned that he was making classical music.
You did.
Yeah, and I went back to check that out, and I could not find the album, but I stopped looking because he has new music out as well. And it's not classical. It's really interesting. It's genreless. It's it's somewhat jazzy. But it's not like straight up jazz. It's sort of maybe, I don't know. This guy might be the most interesting musician we're not paying attention to. And when I get time, I'm going to go back and listen to a little bit of Bruce Hornsby. But he had big hits, The Way It Is in 1986.
Sure, absolutely.
That may actually be an album we talk about one day because I love that album. And then he played piano for the Grateful Dead. He played keyboards for the Dead at one point.
Yep.
Yeah. But his 2024 album, Deep Sea Vents, is super interesting. And then the song that I listened to off it was Secret House. So I'm recommending that, and probably look deeper into that album because it seems really cool.
So there's 2024, did you say?
Yeah.
Yeah. Who knew? Who knew?
I know. So it's I think we stumbled onto something really interesting here with the current Bruce Hornsby. Not radio friendly, not poppy, but really outstanding music from what I can gather.
I'll look forward to a review.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we had been kind of an on and off again conversation about lo-fi.
Mm-hmm.
And I had kind of challenged you to go back because you were, at least the first time around, you were insistent that it was a style of recording. So lo-fi was just something you did when you didn't have the ability to record in
Right.
a high end.
Well, yeah, I don't know if that's exactly right. I just think when you're listening to music, and this is my assertion about genre in general, that it should sound like the music should sound like something, that the genre describes. So if you're saying this music is lo-fi, to me, it means it should sound like a low-fidelity recording. And it could go back all the way to Robert Johnson. That was
Sure.
lo-fi. And then we had talked about other acts that, say the Mountain Goats, whose first recordings were on cassette tape, and those were clearly lo-fi because that's kind of what he had available to him. But
you made kind of a reference that sort of stuck with me.
okay,
And it was like you compared lo-fi as a genre to like buying a pair of distressed or torn jeans.
well, and what I was getting at was there, current musicians perhaps have better technology available to them.
Mm-hmm.
And so then they're intentionally creating that lo-fi sound.
Correct.
That's kind of what I meant by that.
No, but I agree that that's what's going on.
Okay.
And that has become kind of a genre unto itself where they're intentional imperfections.
Yes.
They're trying to make it sound, casual or garagey
Right.
as a genre. And so Guided by Voices would be the example I use. I really like them, and I think they are the catalyst. But I think lo-fi, that intentional flawed, is probably pioneered going all the way back to like the Beach Boys.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. Sorry, I wasn't ready for the Beach Boys.
No, I get it.
What do you have a song or?
No, well, I think they're
because the Beach Boys are like known for their production, especially like Pet Sounds. But having said that, like the Beatles' White Album even has been called lo-fi to some extent. So if I delve into this a bit further, then I don't know if I have an answer to your question or if you asked me a question.
I didn't really ask you a question. I just said, that the Beach Boys were kind of credited with that. I also think it's cool that you have these bands like Guided by Voices that are kind of known for the lo-fi sort of thing. You have the Mountain Goats, which have gotten more produced now. But there's also a soul like subculture moving into modern music, including into like rap and hip hop.
So I think the issue we're having is the change. Like lo-fi meant something, then over time it began to mean something else.
Yep.
So when you first asked me about lo-fi in relation to Guided by Voices, the early Guided by Voices, not the current Guided by Voices, and I just gave you off the top of my head a definition of lo-fi. If you may allow me to read, though, okay. So the original lo-fi that we discussed refers to recording with less than professional or flawed sound quality.
Yep.
Lo-fi is short for low fidelity and initially referred to low quality recording with audible imperfections such as background noise or performance mistakes recorded with inexpensive equipment.
Yeah.
Right.
So like the Mountain Goats with just recording on a boombox.
Yes. Or Guided by Voices with the legit garage band sound because that's what they were doing.
Gotcha.
And they weren't I don't think they ever intended to be a genre unto themselves. I think they just what they had available to them, and that's what they were able to do to get their music out. I kind of think I don't know, but I will say, like, when you first asked me, that's the definition I gave you.
Yep.
And so I'm pretty much correct, is all I'm trying to point out. But then to go on with so then I researched further, because you're like, oh, I think there's more out there. And there is, okay. And I actually kind of came upon two sort of lo-fis out there, okay. One of them maybe goes to your hip-hop thing, okay.
Which we can call chill pop.
Chill hop.
Chill hop?
Chill hop.
Like
Somebody's
chill pop.
already thought of it.
I like chill pop.
You shouldn't, because it's not pop, it's hip hop. So it does have this sort of, and again, if I may read, okay, a subgenre of electronic music that shares qualities with down-tempo music, slower music, the chill wave scene, and lo-fi hip-hop. Mixes elements of house, jazz, easy listening, so you could listen to it at your cocktail party or yacht. Sample, emphasizing perfect homemade quality of analog recordings. The result is a dreamy audio with a relaxed retro sound that many found ideal for background music, especially studying. So when I went, after we had this discussion, I said, hey Siri, play lo-fi music for me. And this is what came up.
Chill pop?
Chill pop, yes. If you just say, at least
Chill
on
pop.
my phone, I said, hey Siri, play lo-fi, chill pop came up. Chill hop. Don't do this to me. So,
Gotcha. So we're both right.
yeah, no, I'm not denying the chill hop, other than, I think it's still, so let's go to lo-fi for a moment, okay? It's sort of taken over, just lo-fi in general, DIY music, home recorded music, okay? Stuff that you do not in a studio.
Yep.
I think is generally regarded as lo-fi, except over time, home studios have become quite a bit more advanced. And the chill hop that you speak of is, it's recorded on computers, and not recorded on computers, created on computers.
Sure.
Our theme song is essentially a lo-fi song, although it's not really chill hop, because it's a little more up-tempo. But it's definitely, we have a lo-fi theme song, if you'll be pleased to know.
That is awesome.
Yeah. So sure, it's fine. I prefer chill hop than lo-fi, but I think lo-fi is starting to take on the meaning of done at home.
Sure.
Okay. There's
I think the best way really to say that, the torn gene analysis.
You like that?
Yeah, I think that's a great comparison,
Okay.
because you go out and you buy something that intentionally looks distressed, worn, or torn.
Yeah.
And I believe bands for years, going back to the Beach Boys, tried to make things sound more kind of homey or.
Right. And you could go to even Let It Be by the Beatles, which was an intent to get away from all their high-produced studio technology and create something a little more simpler and a little more direct, and take out some of that technology. And then Phil Spector got a hold of it and turned it into a whole nother thing. But that, but I think that was the intention there. So there is certainly the idea of, hey, we want to do something slicker and cleaner, or we want to strip this down and just be musicians without all the bells and whistles.
Yeah.
So that for sure exists.
All right, very cool.
Do we have time for one more lo-fi thing?
Sure.
Okay. So there's another third lo-fi, which is actually what I think you were getting back to originally, which was your guided by voices person, right? I think because as they become a little more produced sounding, I don't think they have that lo-fi sound anymore. If it doesn't sound like lo-fi, it's not. And so even if it's produced in a house, in a home, that doesn't make it lo-fi. Like Billie Eilish's first album, I'm almost positive, was done in a home studio. and nobody would think of that as lo-fi. So there's always been people recording at home. There is a genre.
So what's the distinction there you're trying to make?
That there
I'm
is
not following you.
Because it's not a real genre when you start to get to this more advanced thing. So we came upon something called hypnagogic or chill wave, okay? And this is also considered lo-fi music, as you were using it as an extension of your guided by voices thing, okay?
Yeah.
I think, all right? Two people to check out on this are R.Stevie and Ariel Pink. Are you familiar with Ariel Pink?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So again, just to be clear, we're talking about like a third definition of lo-fi, which is not chill hop and is not lo-fi in the original sense that we talked about, but it's home-produced music. Ariel Pink was on 4AD Records, which also is Nirvana, which is also the Mountain Goats. And so this person, and this R.Stevie they started off kind of the same way as the Mountain Goats, where they're doing recordings at home and then eventually producing them more. I'm just going to say you want to listen to Ariel Pink.
Okay.
Okay? The album is Pom Pom, and it's from 2014. It's super interesting. It's sort of Zappa-esque in novelty and songwriting. It's very creative. It's very experimental. It's a really, again, another one of these people that I hadn't heard of before that I think, we'll probably somehow take a deeper dive into the future, because I'm pretty sure you'll like them. But having said that, this album is not lo-fi at all. Like, if you listen to this album, but this person is like considered the godfather of lo-fi. This album is like punk. It's like straight up punk, straight up yacht rock. Like, there's multiple genres on it. So just because he made this album in his house does not make it lo-fi to me.
So you keep going. You're trying to have your cake and eat it too with all of these examples where you're going, this is lo-fi, but it's not lo-fi.
Well, no, I'm saying people call it lo-fi.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, it has another name, like they call this chill wave and hypnagogic music, which I'm fine with. But I don't like the adding lo-fi to this, because to me it has nothing. If you just start talking about, like, can genres have a definition, and then
you're going to make me go back to the whole, biology kind of conversation. So
right.
So you have lo-fi up there, and then from it jumps other things like chill hop, as you want to call it. And
I don't want to call it that. It is called that.
Just saying. So you're in a loop here, kind of contradicting yourself. And
agreeing
with me.
I'm contradicting what other people are calling it.
You don't like a term, so you're kind of.
I don't like the term. In fact, I think using lo-fi in the hypnagogic chill wave sense of Ariel Pink, which is a spectacular artist, not in any way disparaging the artist, just the genre associated with him. It's a non-genre. It's a non-genre. I'm going with non-genre. Non-ra. It's a non-genre.
Yeah. All right. So you just don't like the term being used for a type of music, and you're going to beat that thing to death.
I like to have clarity. If we're going to call something a genre, if we're going to call something lo-fi, that should mean something, and I should be able to...
It does. You just don't like what it means.
No, I do like what it means. It means music that is low fidelity, low quality, recorded on tapes, recorded on lower quality equipment for whatever reason, either intentionally or because that's all you had available to you. The other definitions of lo-fi, I do not accept, but... All right. But I do accept chill hop, and I do accept hypnagogic.
So if you change the name, you like the music.
Yeah, I just don't think lo-fi describes it.
You can leave a comment there at Maestro in the comment section, and please explain to him why he's wrong. All right. So the The other kind of thing that I'd like to just take a couple minutes, and I don't want to go deep on this, but as we kind of build this podcast and we start talking about albums, you have the end of every episode, you kind of go through and you give a ranking or where you would put the particular main album we're talking about
Yes.
into the list. And there sort of is. I haven't really gotten involved in that. I haven't put the list other than
Stating your opinion at certain times.
being disappointed with where you've put them. So I think we're getting close to where it's time to put kind of my money where my mouth is, so to speak, and produce my list.
All right.
So I have for everybody to see. I have a top 125 album that
I don't think we have time for that right now.
that I've curated. I'm not going to read it.
Oh,
to you.
thank God.
So the top 125 albums
All
that
right.
I have, and so I also went back and kind of looked at where Rolling Stone's top 500, where these albums would fall,
Yes.
to see if I was wildly out of place. And I do have one. A couple of the albums I have in my personal top 10.
Mm-hmm.
Are my personal top 10 is all on Rolling Stone, but like one of them is 445th on their list.
Right. And yeah.
So, but I find it fascinating that a couple of the albums we've already talked about are not on their list at all, and that sort of absolutely baffles me. Like Bat Out of Hell is not on their, top 500, and it's got to be one of the best-selling albums of all time.
No, I don't. Are you sure it's not on their top? I don't have it in front of me. I thought it was ranked.
I could not find it.
Okay.
And maybe that'll be a follow-up to next
Yeah.
week. So,
well, I know we had talked, I think, a little bit about Supertramp not being the top 500. I know we've had a couple.
Yeah.
And I do not, for myself, there's probably 100 albums on the top 500 Rolling Stone that aren't on my list. So
no, well, they do other genre.
that
They're
would
in the rap
probably-
and hip-hop that we really don't
right, not our area.
touch on. And, I think Taylor Swift has at least one on there.
I'm happy to talk about Taylor Swift anytime.
Yeah. Well, the Red album.
Yeah, that wouldn't be my first selection, but
yeah. It's a very good album. I agree with you. I'm just
Yeah.
kind of amazed and mystified by some of their choices and disappointed that some of what we would consider
Right.
to be classic.
well, and I think that's, as you've said before, sort of the fun of making lists is then tearing them apart. So it's it's a starting point. You have this list of 500 albums that Rolling Stones think are the 500 best, and I know I don't agree with everything or the order that it's in. So, yeah.
So the two albums that we have covered that are in my top 10
Mm-hmm.
are like London Calling,
Okay.
which Rolling Stone has at 16.
It's pretty high up there.
It's pretty high, yeah. So it's hard to argue.
Right.
And Blonde on Blonde, which they have as 38th.
Okay.
Also kind of good. But
I think I have those flip-flopped in my order, but I always flip-flop them back and forth. Like every time I
Yeah,
look at it,
that's
I'm
fine.
like, what was a greater album? So, yeah.
yeah.
They're both great albums. Again, I don't know
Yeah.
if having them in a particular order gives fodder for talk, but even between those two albums, they're both landmark albums.
Yeah. And then, the album we're talking about today, I do not believe is on their top 500
No, it's not,
either.
and it's
yeah.
it's shocking to me.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well-
because again, when as you said, we rotate albums,
Yep.
and I'm picking albums that I think are important, that are worth talking about, and are worth
Sure.
delving into. I don't know where. Again, I don't have a list of albums pre-made, so I'm just thinking, I really like this album. It's
No,
one of my
fair
favorite
enough.
albums,
Mhm.
and then kind of go back and see what what Rolling Stones has to say. So I will be making a case that this album belongs in the top 500.
I will be fascinated to hear that. And with that, let's drop the needle on side one.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's get ready to rock. In the red corner, an album that needs no introduction. number 2 on the U.S. charts in 1985. It had 4 top 20 hits and was performed by the legendary musician Sting, backed by one of the greatest jazz rock bands ever assembled. This is Dream of the Blue Turtles. And in the blue corner, 2 fat guys. This is 2 fat guys and an album.
Before we dive into the album, we typically talk about the artist or the band. In this case, it's the artist, although the band he assembled for this is pretty monstrous.
Yes.
I'm sure we'll touch on that. But tell me a little bit about Sting.
Well, Sting, monster musician, as an artist, has sold over 100 million copies of music as both a member of Police and as a solo act. 17 Grammys, Hall of Fame, Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, Kennedy Center Honors, British Songwriter Hall of Fame. This guy has credibility. Like, this guy has done a lot. Started off as a jazz bassist, as an actual jazz musician. And he's called Sting because he used to wear a black and yellow jumper with a striped hood back in the day before he was like in the Police, and so as a child. I don't know if my impression of the story was as a musician, but maybe it was as a child. I don't have a clear answer to that, but my impression was like that was what he would show up to for gigs. It's like he would have an outfit, and
I had never.
But
heard
he
that.
was when he was being interviewed. The interviewer once asked him Gordon, like called him by his name, Gordon. Gordon Sumner for first and last name, but just said, Gordon, could you blah blah blah, and he says, I don't know who this Gordon is. My mom doesn't call me Gordon. My wife doesn't call me Gordon. I've always been Sting. So and then he's an EGOT nominated person, almost. He hasn't won an EGOT. But he's been nominated for a Grammy, Oscar, and Tony. Doesn't have the Emmy nomination, but perhaps. But he's a super accomplished musician.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, this Dream of the Blue Turtles is his first solo album after sort of leaving the Police or putting the Police on hiatus or whatever it was at the time.
So, for this particular album, before we go into the album itself, he assembled quite the cast of characters, if you will.
Right, and I mean, this is going to be one of the reasons why this is a special album.
Mm-hmm.
He created, the cast of characters. On drums, Omar Hakim from Weather Report. Also appeared on the Brothers in Arms album we talked about previously. Branford Marsalis was the saxophone player. Kenny Kirkland is a keyboardist who plays for Branford and Wynton Marsalis. These are all big-time jazz musicians. Daryl Jones was the bass player. He played with Miles Davis. He's been obviously with Sting. He's been with the Rolling Stones, from Chicago, by the way.
Yeah.
And here's one you probably don't know. Eddie Grant.
Is that the
Electric Avenue guy?
Electric Avenue.
Yeah, plays the congas on the album, but he's
I didn't get that far into it. That's very cool.
But he would not be like one of the primary jazz musicians that we're speaking of. No. All these people are legit jazz monster players. And so his, I guess, vision for this album really is, it's not jazz rock. It's not jazz fusion. I don't consider this like a jazz fusion album. It's pop music played by great musicians. So if you want a genre, I don't know if I can get too far ahead of you, because I know.
I don't see this at all as.
So can I throw out sophistopop? I didn't make it up. Someone did. I know it's a stupid genre. You can go with it's a non-genre, and it won't upset me. This is like how stupid this gets. But it's definitely. How about just an art pop or art rock album?
Yeah, I mean it's jazz. It's.
It's not. It's not at all jazz. There's one song that's. Well, there's a couple. I shouldn't say. There's not. I would say "Shadows in the Rain" is pretty jazzy-ish. Dream of the Blue Turtles is the only actual jazz song on the album. In fact, it was nominated for Best Jazz Instrumental. It's when you're talking about jazz, like what is it then? Why do you think it's jazz?
I don't. I'm really struggling here because I was trying very hard as kind of leading into this to simply let you talk about this album.
Okay.
I mean, it's an album you clearly like because I have always struggled with this album.
Really? All right. Well, I'm happy to go on about it.
Yeah, it's not. It's
so it's not. I don't believe at all a jazz album. I believe it's a rock album created with jazz musicians, and so the playing is extremely high level playing. But when you talk about jazz, there's sort of two things that you think of. One is improvisation and the other is sort of swing. And of course, when you have jazz fusion and things like that, obviously there's rock beats and there's different beats. So not all jazz has that 50s swing to it. But when I'm listening to jazz, and of course there's jazz harmonies and stuff. So there's a lot of things that make it jazzy. But I consider this a rock album. I would not in any way call this a jazz album. And I think and why I like it is because of that. Because they really kind of merged the two styles. They have these super... I mean, I'm not denying that it's jazzy and jazz influence. I just really don't hear it as a jazz album. So yeah, I think it's just a great collection of musicians.
yeah.
I think of it as a reverse sellout album. In other words, Sting made like a ton of money as a member of the Police, and then he had the artistic freedom and the financial freedom to make an album that he wanted to make. So this is a very risky album for him. It's
Well, yeah. It's,
yeah. So he, I think, acknowledged that. I think he's a true artist. I don't, in the sense that he has his own artistic visions that he tries to bring out, some more successful than others, but definitely a departure from normal. And even the Police was a pretty adventurous band.
Sure.
But it does have that sort of blend of emotional and intellectual music that I like. What? What are you chuckling at?
No, I'm just choking on that. I couldn't. It's hugely pretentious, but go on.
So I think, there I disagree. I can't, well, okay. Go on, ask me if Sting is pretentious.
Sting pretentious?
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think it's not fair to say that because...
Oh, it's totally.
Because I think he's legitimately trying to do something excellent. Like I think he's trying. And I think he's a skilled musician, and you're bringing in these highly skilled people. I think this album is largely successful. Are there a couple songs that maybe miss the mark? It's possible, and I do think it's you're not the only one that would say Sting is pretentious, but I think he's also sincere, and I think he's always also gifted. And I think he's an outstanding musician, and I think he made something that is different from almost anything else. Like the closest thing I could think of maybe is Steely Dan, with their sort of blend of jazz and rock thoughts. But it's very, it's. I think it's an art rock album. I think it's art. put it that way. I don't. You've been making a lot of faces
I'm
here.
trying.
You're very disapproving, and I'm shocked by it. Actually, I'm shocked
Sure.
and stunned. This album was a #2 in the U.S., a #3 in the U.K. A lot of people liked it. I think it is an album. I always kind of use my Rotten Tomatoes idea, where I think it sold a lot. The people liked this album.
I bought it.
The critics liked it less, and they most often would, if the people that don't like it, probably say the same sort of things you are, that this is really sort of pretentious and highfalutin. So I think that's a common criticism. I don't accept that criticism for myself. I think it's largely successful, and I think it's, again, based on this sort of idea of genre, like, you're a rock star. You're not able to do this. You're not good enough to do this. You shouldn't be doing jazz. The jazz musicians, in fact, were highly criticized for partaking in this because they were sort of abandoning their jazz brethren. Like, oh, you're going to go make a rock album now? And so this goes to my constant argument about genre being something that, traps people, really, and prevents them from experimenting and making interesting music. Even back to Bob Dylan, when he was, criticized for plugging his guitar in. Why are you making this face? You've done nothing but make faces at me today. You are a face maker.
My turn?
Sure.
Okay. No, when this came out, when he released music, I was a huge Police fan.
Mm-hmm.
I saw them in 1983 at Comiskey Park.
Mm-hmm.
That was my band. Loved that kind of new wave
Mm-hmm.
music of them. And then he comes out with this, which is a complete left turn.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Absolutely.
So he assembled a bunch of jazz musicians, and in my opinion, he made a jazz album. We disagree there. He made a jazz album. And I just was, I was mad at him for
Right.
it.
He broke your genre box.
No, well,
He
because
broke your genre box.
and so he was making something, and this was like,
Sting can't do this. He's a reggae musician.
But this was totally like, hey, look at me. I'm a real musician. Take me seriously. I'm playing with jazz guys. And it was just, so he was using that sort of.
What if I told you Stuart Copeland was a jazz guy?
Yeah, whatever. So you're this, and on top of it, this isn't even his best album, his solo album.
Okay.
So in the Sting world,
Yes.
this is probably, the 8th best album that he created. You have the 5 Police albums, and then 10 Sumner's Tale, and Nothing Like the Sun are by far better albums of his, if you're just going with him alone. And this was him. I don't know. He took some pieces out of the Police and literally took a song from the Police.
Well, he did a cover of his own song.
Right, and in a jazzy way. And then he took this whole, the anti-war, anti-exploitation things.
Right.
That Roger Waters did with Pink Floyd.
Okay.
And then said, hey, I'm going to remove the sociopathness of Roger Waters that made those albums interesting, and I'm going to put jazz to it. And so it just comes off as pretentious and, it's back to, you can't sing a sad song, it's Steve Martin's bit, you can't sing a sad song on a banjo.
Yeah.
It's like you can't do depressing music or, sociopath jazz.
Children's Crusade does not sound jazzy. I mean, that's the song you're referencing.
No, it's one of them. I mean, you have Russians.
These don't sound jazzy. I don't understand. So Russians actually is based on a Prokofiev
sure.
classical piece.
No, absolutely. Which he,
so you have
jazzied up. But Consider Me Gone is a horrible song. Dream of the Blue Turtles is terrible. They're just terrible, terrible songs.
Wait.
And Moon Over Bourbon Street,
Yeah.
which I get is the whole Anne Rice,
Yes.
Interview with a Vampire. If you haven't read Interview with a Vampire, you should read it right now.
Definitely.
But now that song seems very stocky, rapey kind of song. I mean, it's just it doesn't hold up.
Well, you're a vampire. I mean, these are people with
just
loose morals.
There's better ways to do the lyrics
Okay.
than that. So it was disappointing. I was curious to go back and revisit this after my feelings. I went to see him do
Right.
this at Alpine Valley. I saw
the Dream
him,
of the Blue Turtles
right,
tour.
with the band now called the Blue Turtles or whatever.
Right, yes.
And it was all these kind of.
And I did not get to see that.
No,
show.
you didn't. I think you came and picked me up from it, but yes.
Oh, all right. I don't remember.
Yeah. But it's just
I do remember.
It's not even his best stuff,
Okay. Well, agreed.
Englishman in New York City is a phenomenal song off of Nothing Like the Sun. It's Probably Me, which is worth mentioning if you haven't seen Gregory Porter do that at the Washington, D.C. at
The Kennedy Center?
the Kennedy Center
Okay.
Honors when Gregory Porter did that.
Yes.
Amazing version of it. I think even brought Sting to tears. So
We may be getting an email from Sting.
so that's it. And if you want to, the other thing that sort of irritates me is like Bradford Marsalis actually at this time did one of probably the best jazz albums in the 80s.
Okay.
If you don't remember it, Royal Garden Blues
Okay.
in 1986 is just an amazing bit of jazz.
Well, he was definitely the guy. I mean, he still probably is the guy, but at the time he was really the guy.
Yeah. So it's just the whole. So when I went back and looked, I got angry all over again.
Well, that's fine.
It's-
If somehow I've ruined your day, then that cheers me up. That brings me happiness, despite the fact that you did not care for the album so much. It does have 4 U.S. top 20s on it.
I'm sure.
If You Love Somebody, Set Them Free was a U.S. 3. I really like that song. I've always liked that song. I like Love is the Seventh
Pretentious.
Wave, a U.S. 17. Well, you could say that about all of them. You can just say he's pretentious. But I mean,
Love is in the
Fortress
Seventh Wave.
Around Your Heart, U.S. 8. I love that song.
That's probably the closest you're going to get from me to a song that I like because I think it's more poppy. But Love is the Seventh Wave. Is that where he makes fun of the Police songs?
Yes, he does.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Right, that was at the very end.
Every
and
leg
he
you
goes
break
through,
or something
yes.
like that. Yeah. All right.
Okay, so there is just a last bit.
No,
on
go
this.
on. You got time.
Well, there's a documentary on YouTube called "Bring on the Night" from 1985, and it's about the making of this album and then live performance. It's about 40 minutes of, pre and preparation. Then the second 40 minutes is essentially a concert film, and it has a lot of interviews with the people involved, and you get to see some rehearsals and behind the scene. You do get to see Sting being pretentious and arty, but that's him. So I like the album. I like it as an art rock album. Again, if you want a stupid genre name to go in your collection of stupid genre names, Sophistopop is what has come out. I do not at all think it's a jazz album. I would not consider this an actual jazz album.
All right. So, at lots of levels here, we'll agree to disagree on this
Sure.
one. Yeah. So, how about now that kind of at the end of these, we talk about, like, is it a landmark album? Is it a perfect album?
Yeah.
Do you have...
Well, it's not. I don't think it's a perfect album. I don't like every song on it, so I'm not going to declare it a perfect
Give me a song
album.
you don't like.
Um,
Because you've talked about them all in glowing fashions.
Consider Me Gone is just okay. Children's Crusade was like Russians. sounds a little dated and a little precious.
Well, it's
No, I know. So, but I still like the song. I'm just going to say not a perfect album. I like...
We work the black seam. There's another...
I like it.
Yeah?
I don't hate it.
I don't know. So that's sort
about the UK miners' strike. It's
so these
UK
have miners' children.
Yeah, no, they're very
anti-nuclear, anti.
Yeah, they're very like I don't know if politically active is the word, but he had thoughts. I mean, he was trying to write serious music.
It just shouldn't be done in a jazz format.
It's because he didn't do it in a jazz form.
Art pop, if that makes you feel better.
It does make me feel better.
Yeah,
art rock, art pop.
Shouldn't do those
but I
think
rock. I think the pretension that you...
Pretension.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretentiousness that you...
Yeah.
But that's also the art. That's the flip side of the art part of it. Aren't all artists pretentious?
I don't know, but he, and that song bugs me because it's sort of like this. It is about the strike, but then it's like anti-coal, and then the chorus is anti-nuclear.
The carbon
14
or whatever,
thing,
right?
He couldn't rhyme anything with uranium, I guess. So
Geranium.
Carbon 14. Yeah. All right. The whole thing is just all right.
It's fine.
So
I do.
Landmark?
I do believe it's a landmark album. I believe it's a landmark album. It has the record sales to back it up, the culturalness, the cultural importance.
What landmark did it set, actually? What did this change about music or the world, or why is this a landmark album?
It's again, you're taking these finest musicians in the land.
What kind of musicians?
Jazz musicians making pop and rock music.
Hmm.
I know, because your little genre box has been damaged.
No.
Why these jazz musicians are not allowed to leave the jazz box? No, they are. That's exactly what you're saying. Yeah. So they're jazz musicians playing rock music and playing elevated music. As I said, I don't think anything, and I just think that collection of musicians together with an album that had 4 top 20 hits on it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it has 6. I don't know. The UK. There's others. Sure. There's a lot of good songs on this album with a lot of great musicians, and it's a very experimental and he went out of the box clearly to make this album.
Yep.
And I think for those reasons, it's a landmark album.
Awesome. And so the Maestro gives it a landmark status. I give it a meh. But
I do personally have it as Sting's best solo album, by the way.
Not even close. All right. Well, let's move on. I think we got a live read from a sponsor.
Okay, I have to turn a page for that. Two Fat Guys in an Album is sponsored by Deeper Connections Counseling, helping people connect to themselves, the people they love, and the world around them through individual and couples therapy. For Illinois residents, both in person and online. More information at dcctherapy.com.
It's awesome to have somebody to talk to, and mental health should be at the forefront of what we always kind of think about and talk about. And it's hard to find even your best buddy, to not necessarily always be like super judgmental or something, or
It is very difficult.
So it's good to have it's good to have people to talk to. If you're struggling in a relationship or you're struggling personally, you reach out to somebody, and if you need somebody to talk to, this is an excellent group of people. So thank you for the sponsorship, and much appreciated.
Hey, Two Fat Guys in an Album fans. This is Diane Blackburn, realtor with Baird & Warner and proud sponsor of this podcast. I pride myself in being committed to serve as a trusted real estate advisor for all my clients. Whether you're looking to sell, buy, rent, or lease, feel free to reach out and let's chat about how we can work together to make it happen. If you're watching, scan the QR code for my website or give me a call at 630-638-1999. See you on the flip side.
Are you someone who needs help with their Instagram or TikTok? Well, you're in luck. LR Media is here to help. Email me at laurarose2003@aol.com to get started. Let's make your social media shine.
So welcome to Side 2. This is where we kind of talk about what we're listening to, what we're excited about, maybe some new music that's out there. Do you have any...
One thing that's been out that we maybe glossed over is the Fire Aid concert on
Yes.
Amazon Prime. And we're probably a few weeks past that, but I'm assuming it's still
maybe a
on.
month,
and I'm assuming you'd still be able to make a donation if you like. But it was I didn't see the entire concert because it's 3-something hours long.
Right.
But I watched a good hour and a half of it. It was super interesting. Opens up with Billie Eilish and Billy Joe and Green Day. So you have the two Billies opening the show up, and they play together. Dre was on there. Joni Mitchell was on there, and then may I even say that Dawes was on there. We may
Yes,
hear
they
from
were.
Dawes
Yeah,
coming up.
yeah.
So that's about as far into the show as I got. But it's just and then Dawes was performing with some of his Laurel Canyon favorites. Obviously, it had a lot of LA musicians involved.
So I didn't watch it, but I didn't watch it when it happened.
Right.
But one of the cool things that they did that I've heard others talk about is the fact that they had it at two different locations.
Right.
So they were able to switch back and forth. So you weren't sitting through the changing of the stage.
Yep.
So that was kind of a neat,
Yeah, and I think
neat
they
idea.
basically were able to sell out 2 arenas, which is pretty
Right.
amazing.
And then they were kind of blending eras
Yes.
a lot
Yes.
with the two Billies, for instance.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
So
very
I'll probably at some point go back and continue to watch it, but didn't want to let that one slide by much longer.
cool. No. For me, I went down a couple of rabbit holes this week. I'm kind of interested in your opinion.
That's odd.
What?
How about Dream of the Blue Turtles is not jazz? There's an opinion.
It is.
Go on.
It is. It is your opinion. I don't know how I got here, but I've been listening to Life in Exile after Abdication, the 1989 album by Mo Tucker.
Oh, okay.
If you're not familiar with Mo Tucker, she was the drummer for the Velvet Underground way back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And it's an interesting album. I don't think it's anything like the Velvet Underground. I think her voice is interesting. I think it's one of those. She might be a very underrated drummer. Obviously, with some pedigree coming from the Velvet Underground.
Right.
But I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Well, I didn't go deep into the album. I listened to Pale Blue Eyes.
Right.
Which is a Velvet Underground cover.
Yeah.
And she sounded great on it. I wasn't sure what to make of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly.
So I kind of have to, give it a deeper listen, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I liked it.
Yeah.
And other great covers, actually. REM does Pale Blue Eyes as well. They do a really good version of it.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I like the song, and she's very interesting.
She is. So if you've never heard it, it's worth going back and kind of listening to a couple songs off of it. It's Life in Exile after Abdication. Mo Tucker is the drummer in the
This is a 1989
yeah,
album,
1989.
I believe. So we're going back a bit.
Way back. Yeah. But she couldn't have been that young back then either. But she's getting up there. So give it a listen. The other thing that I have kind of fallen into is a newer band or more recent band, Bright Eyes.
Mm-hmm.
They're actually coming to the Salt Shed in April.
Okay.
They're a really cool band. The 1985 I'm Wide Awake and It's Morning album is really, really, really good.
Uh-huh.
I
I like their sound a lot.
Yeah, well, I mean, what would you?
I listened the First Day of My Life from
Yeah.
It was more than 2005. So
Yeah.
I think I've decided
Mm-hmm.
finally what you like.
Oh, all right.
No, I think it's just singer-songwriter stuff.
I do,
Like
yeah.
from a large, like the giant umbrella, the genus or the
Right.
whatever.
Right.
I mean, I think singer-songwriter pops up in your list a lot. And there's lots of genres of singer-songwriter,
Sure.
right? I mean, a lot. But I think all those branches tend to go back to singer-songwriter. So I would
Throw in a mandolin. I think you got it.
right, yeah. I think I've kind of but Bright, for some reason listening to Bright Eyes made that click for me. I was like, "Oh, he likes singer-songwriters."
Yeah. Are you interested in seeing them?
Yeah, I'd go
We'll
see 'em.
probably be the oldest people in the.
I don't mind that.
Yeah,
I've
we-
been
we-
to shows where even now we've been the youngest people at, which is sort of frightening also.
What did we see last year that we were? It was us and the security guard. I think were the oldest people. In
Yeah,
there.
I don't
Front
remember.
bottoms
Probably. That was a great show.
was a great show.
And I was actually surprised at the youthfulness of the crowd. I didn't expect it to be that youthful, but it was.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, and that was at the auditorium? No.
No, that was.
It was by the Riviera, but it wasn't the Riviera. It was the
Oh, I never can remember this
Yeah.
name. We saw.
I think there's an entire neighborhood named after it.
the Aragon.
It is the Aragon, yes.
The Aragon.
And there's
Ballroom.
not a neighborhood named after it.
We saw Midnight Oil there
did.
way back, way
Yeah.
back in the day. Yeah.
I was involved in a killer mosh pit wall there. A wall of death is what it was called. A wall of death.
Nice.
I want to say I think it was 30 Seconds to Mars that my son took me to there and nearly died.
Probably not the first time we nearly died
Yeah.
at a concert, but probably for other reasons.
Yeah.
One more I'll throw out, and then I'll let you have it back. Is and this is just kind of a for the record sort of thing. We've talked a couple of times about the Chicago band Horse Girl,
Yes.
and they have a new album that's phonic on, and we've kind of talked about different cuts off of that album, but the whole thing was finally released a couple weeks ago. It is phenomenal. They are, I don't know, straight out of the 1980s kind of pop band sort of vibe to me.
Okay.
Love them. If you're not familiar with Horse Girl, go do it. If you want a recommendation on a song, I would start with Front Runner off of this album. Really good.
All right.
Well,
Yeah, I'm just a couple bands that came up recently also. The Wombats, I did go back and listen to, because I think the whole album dropped perhaps, or maybe only a
Right,
few. I apologize, I don't have the exact details, but I went back and listened to their newer stuff, and I actually like it. And we had talked before how it's doesn't sound like the original, that
Right.
earlier album.
Not lo-fi.
But Sorry I'm Late, I Didn't Want to Come. I thought it was a really great song.
it is.
And it does have that sort of lo-fi chill quality that I
It
think you
does.
like. So
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
And-
recommend that as well.
And then Goose came out with their song Everything Must Go, and I like that. They've got an album dropping in April, but I think it's got good songwriting in it. So what I'm starting to hear from Goose that I like is they've always been jam bandy. They could play forever, but I'm liking the songs. That's providing a little bit of a better launch pad for their jams, like an actual good, well-written song, and then expanding on that. So I'm liking that. And they do, by the way, have a Live at the Salt Shed album from a couple years ago, from 2023. That if you want to dive into Goose, I recommend that album.
Nice. A couple concerts. Well, I've talked enough, I think, on this about how excited I am that Car Seat Headrest is coming.
Yes.
I did find out they're playing an indoor show at the Salt Shed on July 16th.
Okay.
But then they're coming back for another. They're doing an outdoor show on July 26th, also at the Salt Shed. We've never been.
We've never been in the outdoor portion
space,
of it.
so
right.
I think that'd be cool to see. I also saw that, and I don't know if you're a fan at all, but Japanese Breakfast is coming.
I liked the song that they had a year or two ago.
Yeah.
I wasn't all over them, like the entire album. And Japanese Breakfast is a person, not a band.
Like which one's Pink?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know if you've researched this all, but they're an actress or something, and this is sort of a side project for them.
Yeah, they were interviewed on NPR once,
Okay.
or she was interviewed on
Yes.
NPR once, and it was very interesting. You know, if you can find that interview, I think it was All Things Considered or All Music Considered, and she talked about her process of making music. And it was pretty cool. So that's all I have. What else?
No, I think we got it.
All right. Well, let's. It's time to flip albums and move on to side 3.
This episode of Two Fat Guys in an Album is brought to you by Smidge Films. If you're looking to bring your ideas to life with some cool cinematic work, Smidge Films has you covered. From brand stories to promos, we'll help you tell your story in a way that really sticks. Check us out and see what we can do for you.
Welcome to side 3, Beyond Classic Rock, where we talk about a piece of music or an album that is worth discovering that doesn't necessarily fit into the category that we would cover under the main topic here. And this one I think is right on, to me anyways, is right on kind of the cusp of where it could be fall, kind of tip into the great album, the classic album world, or can find a home right here in Beyond Classic Rock. And this is by a band, Dawes. We have seen, I think they're just a phenomenal, one of the phenomenal bands that's working today. And the album is from 2011 and is Nothing Is Wrong. Doing my kind of category thing, this is folk rock.
Okay.
Rock, folk rock.
Yeah.
I think it's.
I like Americana is sort of
I think they
summatively,
fall-
like in a slightly larger.
They kind of
brand.
fall in that umbrella.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because when you say
Mer-
country or whatever, that's sometimes people automatically think bro country. And,
So Americana, this is a good
or
thing.
roots.
Yeah,
Yeah, American
Americana I
roots.
would think is like a longer. So Americana, I think the Grateful Dead is the founders of kind of Americana, and these are these long kind of jam band songs.
Yeah, I
longer
think
things.
Americana means more than that, but
Yeah,
it falls under that
that's fair.
umbrella.
So I'm not sure I would say these because these are pretty tight.
Right, not jamming, not
No,
a jam
no.
bandy type group at all. Yeah, singer-songwriter.
Sure.
Yep.
Brothers, right?
Yes. Yeah, Taylor Goldsmith and Griffin Goldsmith.
Mm-hmm.
Which
And-
I actually didn't know they were brothers until we saw them. And then you
Yeah.
could tell by the banter on stage that they were brothers.
Right. So tell me a little bit about the band or what
Well,
you find interesting or.
so I feel like I get to beat you up now. I think it's a good album. I like Dawes. I enjoyed seeing them live. The Laurel Canyon element of it is something I had brought
you
up.
talked
And,
about,
yeah,
yeah.
and that's sort of the LA influence. And I think Dawes is admittedly comes from the Laurel Canyon lineage of musicians. And that's
I
like
don't think you can
Stills,
leave
and-
that. Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
you can leave that there. Let's.
Yeah, you're talking about like Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and Joni Mitchell, and Neil Young, and the Eagles, and the Doors, and the Buffalo Springfield, and Jackson Brown, and the Byrds, and James
Right.
Taylor, all those.
So that's more LA, right?
LA laid back SoCal rock.
So in the 60s and early 70s, you had kind of the two sides of California, right? So you had what was going on up in San Francisco
Yeah,
with the Dead,
Right.
and what was going on in LA and the
Yes.
Laurel Canyon kind of area with
With
Crosby's-
those
yeah.
types, right? So very much, and again, not to, not actually trying to step on this genre conversation, but I kind of think of it as Americana. Like the Eagles would be sort of my godfather of Americana. Actually, that sort of folk rockish that
the world's
that
best backup
kind
band,
of
the
a
Eagles.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, backed up for Linda Ronstadt.
Yeah.
So those are the sounds that you're thinking of when you think of Laurel Canyon music.
Sure. So this is so Dawes would be a descendant of that sort of.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tradition.
Admittedly, and actually performing with members of, I think Stephen Stills and Graham Nash on the Fire concert.
Yeah.
So he definitely embraces that. Has Jackson Browne performing on this album on Fire Away. Even.
Yeah.
So he definitely feels attached to that sound.
So
Did you know he was part of they were Robbie Robertson's backing band?
I did not.
Yeah,
no.
so it's almost like
Right.
full circle.
Yeah. With everybody.
Yeah. From the band. Robbie Robertson from the band.
So I don't know. I classify them as Americana. I think Rolling Stone referred to them as American rock and roll, or that tradition.
Right.
I kind of like that, and they're, their idols, again, are like Tom Petty and Springsteen.
Mm-hmm.
We're once again at Springsteen and Bob Seger. And there's a lot of sort of Bob Seger in this album, if you ask me.
Okay.
When we saw them, I had a list of songs that I was hoping to hear.
Yes. Because you're a set list guy.
I am.
Yeah.
I am a set list guy. I love kind of knowing what's coming and seeing that. And here is a band that is very much, they do different set lists.
Right. Well, I think they were doing were they doing two shows at the Salt Shed, possibly?
No.
Or it was just coming from one show to another.
Yeah.
They don't always do the same sets.
Same set.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know if it has to do with like length of shows, amount of time they get on stage, if there's an opening act or your what, etc. So I had been listening or been reading the previous couple of sets, and I was disappointed they were either doing, a bunch of songs I liked, or they were doing another bunch of songs I liked.
But not all of them.
I wanted to hear all the songs I liked.
Exactly.
And so off of this album, it's Time Spent in Los Angeles, $1 Million Bill, and a little bit of everything.
Okay.
And I was afraid they weren't going to do all of those at the show we saw, and they did. They did. They hit
it was
them all.
really cool, and I wasn't expecting it either. And I'm not sure what made him do it, but even on stage, I think he'd allude like, "Oh, screw it, let's do this song," kind of a thing. Like, we're gonna do them all tonight. And I don't know if it's because it was a great crowd.
They sold out the Salt Shed. I think that surprised them.
Right, I think it sold. And then this is the song where didn't the audience keep singing the song at the end?
They did.
Like when they had finished the song, they'd finished the concert,
walked off, and the crowd went back to like the third verse and sang the entire third verse in the chorus.
Yeah.
And the band came back out to listen to us sing the song.
It was amazing. I've never seen anything like that. And I don't know if that's a standard thing at Dawes shows or not, but it was incredible. It was a moment.
We got the final applause
Yeah.
from the band.
It was super cool.
So I'm sensing from the way you walked into this that you're not the biggest fan of
Well,
this?
I like Dawes. Again, I like them. The songs you mentioned, Time Spent in Los Angeles, If I Wanted Someone is a song I like quite a bit off the album, and A Little Bit of Everything is a great song. So on this album of 11 tracks, 3 are favorites. Okay. So there's there's 3 really good songs on the album. For me, the rest of the way is a little bit of a slog. There's a lot of skips here. But you could put it on and when you're, having your cocktail or on your yacht and it wouldn't offend anybody.
Right.
The one of the reviewers kind of used the title of the album to sort of take a little dig of it, like Nothing Is Wrong. And it sort of implied that it was a little too safe. Yes, there's nothing wrong with this album, but also not a great album. So
It's a pretty early album for them, if not their first.
I don't think it's their first, but yes.
Yeah.
This is probably the album that launched them, I think.
Yeah, I would say that.
Yeah, I think they had other albums before that, but I think this is the one. I think a little bit of everything in particular. I recall that getting a lot of airplay. I like three. I definitely have three songs on this album that are favorites that I really, really, really like. The other songs are fine.
Before the album came out, he did like a solo version of a little bit of everything live that I saw and got a copy of and thought it was amazing. And it's a special song for me because I don't know how old my son was at the time, but him and I liked the song together. It was probably the first piece of new music that we liked together. So the song will always have a special place in my heart, which makes this album have a special place in my heart. But I think $1 Million Bill and Time Spent in Los Angeles are playlist songs for me. So I can't complain. I think this is just a great band.
Yeah.
You get a chance to see them, go see them. They're at some summer festival or whatever.
They're wonderful live. They do a great job live. They appreciate their audience.
Yeah.
And
they were literally, I think, amazed by the audience.
They seemed stunned. They seemed like super appreciative.
I don't know how big the Salt Shed, how many people it holds.
I think it's around 5. I'm going to say, yeah, and I think I think so.
Yeah.
And I think the outdoors is a little bigger. It might be 6 or 65.
Yeah. It was a phenomenal show. So I recommend this album. I'm okay. Yeah, there's a couple of skips.
Yeah, and the interesting, and I would think of this, albums have kind of evolved. We've talked about album rock, and a lot of the albums that we liked in the 70s, 80s, they're true albums, I think. You start them at the beginning, you play through to the end, and they're unified and all that. And I don't know if, at some point with streaming and being the ability to just get one song, like when you used to still have to pay for music, but you could buy a single.
Right.
So people
45?
No, I mean like a single on iTunes even. Like you could pay 99 cents and just get one song.
Well, we used to be able to buy 45.
Right.
A song.
Right.
But I had a ton of those too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I'm thinking more in terms of, just the progression, how, we talked about Bob Dylan being the first album, possibly, Blonde on Blonde.
Started the album.
Right,
yeah.
so you would have all these, you have singles, and then you would have the rest of the album, because I guess you had to release an album. I'm not sure exactly. But clearly the singles were meant to get you to buy the album, say.
Right.
And so now I guess all I'm saying is this album sort of seems that way, where it has a couple singles and then other songs. And I think it's common for a lot of albums in, this era, that in this sort of iTunes-y era where singles started to take another meaning, where people weren't making
you
complete
could just download a song.
Yeah, people weren't making like complete albums anymore. And I think it's coming back around where there's more value in albums, but this to me seems like that. It seems like it's several really good songs and then whatever else.
So I noted, I kind of noted in here that the unifying theme here across all of these songs was like restlessness.
Yeah, I think.
And he seems unsettled.
Right.
But now that I say that out loud, or was about to say it out loud, I think that's all Dawes'
all of his music.
Yeah, right.
Right. And so I think if there's any
so
little
Taylor
dig on Dawes, it tends to sound a little bit the same.
So Taylor is the main songwriter, right?
Okay.
I think he wrote all the lyrics, at least on this album.
Right, and he's the singer as well.
Right. So, but yeah, now that I say that out loud, I think that's just sort of his theme, his his niche in the world.
Right.
Right. Which is not
Yeah.
bad.
No, and it's all good. There's some really good songs that come out of it. But there's also a lot of other things.
I'm happy to be talking about this album, mostly because I'm happy to share Dawes with people. I think Dawes is one of the groups that's out today that's worth taking the time to look into the music. It's worth taking the time to go see them when you can. I regret the fact that it took us so long to actually go see them. Because they're phenomenal.
And we've been on to him. I mean, I've been on to him since this album came out in 2011. Right. So I've always liked them. It took 13 years to see them.
Yeah. So I agree with you. It's probably not a perfect album. Very much worth looking into. Some of the songs we mentioned are worth listening to. If you get into them, they'll probably end up on your playlist. They have lots of other songs that are just phenomenal. There's the song, one of my favorite songs, and I think one of the song, it might have been the song they played at the end, but I Hope All Your Favorite Bands Stay Together.
That's a great song.
Yeah. So they have plenty more music out there. It's Dawes is Dawes.
Yes.
And give them a spin.
And I was shocked that that wasn't their name. It wasn't like Billy Dawes. Like I expected it to be.
Did you know that story?
No.
So there was a main guy.
Yeah, I do remember, but go ahead and tell it.
There was a main guy that was actually, they were like a trio, and the main guy was Dawes, so he named the band Dawes, and then he left, and they just kept the name.
That's pretty hilarious.
Just totally hilarious.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. With that, I think we got to flip over one more time to side 4.
Okay.
Unless you have any other comments about Dawes?
I think we covered it.
So at side 4 here, we do the ranking of songs with your
ranking of albums. Yeah.
Ranking of albums.
Okay.
So we need to put Dream of the Blue Turtle into our ranks here. This is episode 8. So where does it fall on the rank of the 8 albums?
I'm afraid to even go here with you with the face you've been making all show.
No. Well, I assume it's dead last, but I'm interested to actually have you say that. So,
okay. So I go back, actually, again, these rankings, I put a lot of thought into this.
Totally yours.
Yeah, and it is my ranking, not your ranking, not the show's ranking. But I have Dream of the Blue Turtles and Brothers in Arms sort of close together. They're both 85 albums.
Yeah.
They were both super popular at the time. I liked both albums a great deal when they came out. In the day... So you said you saw Sting. Mm-hmm. I didn't. I saw Dire Straits, but not Sting.
Yep.
So then I guess, like, from an authenticity level from my youth, I actually liked Dire Straits better than Sting back then, and perhaps better than this album. But this was a big risk for Sting, a complete departure from the Police, which you still have clearly not gotten over.
I have not.
And I liked that it was adventurous and
jazzy.
It is jazzy, but not jazz. And so I have to I'm putting it ahead of Brothers in Arms. I think the musicians on this album are incredible. The blend of jazz and rock that, as I said, maybe only Steely Dan comes close to being in a similar vein. And but I could easily put Brothers in Arms ahead of Dream of the Blue Turtles. I would for sure have Sting ahead of Breakfast in America. So not dead last, and sort of flip-flopping it between Brothers in Arms.
So it's interesting you talk about the musicians between those two albums. So Brothers in Arms, when some of them...
Omar Hakim was on both albums.
Yeah, he was the drummer for both.
Yeah.
Right?
So it is pretty...
And Sting appeared on...
And he appeared on both. No, it's true.
Yeah.
Because he had that cameo and I Want My MTV. So
I think you should at least lean Brothers in Arms ahead of those.
It's... If you ask me tomorrow, it might be flipped.
Yeah.
Just like Blonde on Blonde and London Calling, I keep flip-flopping.
Yeah.
I don't know what it's going to turn out to when we finally have it, but both of those are sort of paired up in my mind, and it's hard to put one ahead of the other.
Yeah, well, and you guess with me, it's not the. I don't.
I can't
I
wait
don't
to
even
see
have that
your
argument.
list
Yeah.
so I can
No,
rip it to shreds.
Nothing to rip to shreds. It's not ripping your list to shreds.
Thank
I
you.
question some of your judgment, but
Yes.
it's not ripping it to shreds. So, okay, so there you go. Where do we decide which?
I'm currently putting it ahead of Brothers in Arms and behind Bat Out of Hell. Sandwiched between Bat Out of Hell and Brothers in
It's a
Arms.
great place to be sandwiched if
Yes.
you're going to have to get sandwiched. All right. With that, I think we'll do our thank yous here. We got to thank our director and producer, Chauncey, there from Smidge Films, our PR team, LR Media, and, of course, our sponsors, Deeper Connections Counseling, Diane Blackburn with Beard and Warner, Smidge Films, LR Media. Please like and follow us. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Spotify, iHeart, Apple Music. Like, subscribe, leave a chat. It helps other people find us. Next week's going to be a big one. We're going to do Jethro Tull's epic monster Aqualung.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Amazing
so it'd be great
album.
to see. So
One I think we might both like.
maybe you never
We'll
know.
find out.
Never know. I am Fat Guy 1.
I'm Fat Guy 2.
We'll see you next time. Yeah.
Well, especially when one of them hates the album.